Okie dokie. Getting started now with our second set of tools. These are our modification tools. Starting with the beginning, we're going to look at our healing brush and spot healing brush tools, as well as the patch and red eye tool. The red eye tool specifically is a very simple tool for removing red eye. You guessed it. There are a lot of other ways to remove red eye, which I'll explain later, that I think work better because you'll see why. But as in any task, there are a number of different ways of going about achieving your goal. It all depends on personal preference. However, let's continue. The spot healing brush tool and the healing brush tool have a couple of pretty big differences. Say you're using an image of a person's face and you're trying to remove a blemish off the face, maybe a pimple or something a little bit unsightly, and you just want to get rid of it so that way you look a little bit better. Well, for the purpose of maintaining consistency, we're going to continue using this earth image, and we're going to increase our diameter here so it's just a tad bigger. And I want to take Florida, and what I want to do with Florida is get rid of it, destroy it. Before anybody comments a hate post, I live in Florida. I do hate Florida, but that's beside the point. So, continuing. The spot healing brush, all it does really is it takes my little circle radius tool here and my selector, and it looks around it and extrapolates or gathers a rough guide of the different color values around, and then it takes what's in the center of the image, or in this case, Tampa, Miami, the Florida Keys, etc., and it will overlay the images or the color ranges around my crosshair and insert them into the center. So watch. So if I drag and drop around Florida, voila. No more Florida. It's gone. The other way to do this is by, instead of using the spot healing brush, which is a very quick way, you can use the healing brush tool. And say I didn't want it to gather from around here, the only real difference is that I define the source that it's going to extrapolate from. Now, I want it to take from the snowy plains up here. Okay? Now, in order to do that, I have to pretty much relay that exact same motion we did with the brush tool and eyedropper earlier. So while I select my healing brush tool, which is the shortcut J, then what I'm going to do is move up here. I'm going to hold down on Option, which creates this crosshair. Remember, Windows users, Alt, and I'm going to click. Now there's my source point, right up there. Now when I go back down to Florida, you'll see the little white thing following my crosshair. That's up here. So if I draw, over Florida, it'll be drawing from up there. As you can see the crosshair up at the top. And there you go. In this case, obviously, I did not choose a good area to gather color values from, so you see this little smudge here. That's to be expected. Okay, the next tool, the brush tool. This is a very, very complex tool that really has a lot of different variables that can cause different results and can allow you to create a lot of really, really cool things. So I'm going to create a whole nother tutorial video just based on the intricacies of the brush tool, including using it with maybe you're using a Wacom pad or an Intuos pad. Okay, so continuing. The brush tool, as you know, the basic version or definition of it is a tool that is basically like drawing over the image. It's all you do. Okay. A couple other parts here. We have the pencil tool and the color replacement tool. The color replacement tool I also don't want to get into right now for a couple of reasons, because it's also a very complicated tool when used properly. But basically, you can see the very simple range of it. Choose a color and you paint over it. But what it does is it just changes the color value without changing the background. So it has to keep some of the stability in the darker colors. But the problem with it is it only works if you use mid to lighter colors. As you can see, it makes it really, really light. It's not anything really, really dark and deep and evil. So I'll show you other ways to achieve the same result with dark colors in another video. Moving on, the stamp tools, clone stamp, pattern stamp, you're probably not going to use those much at the very beginning, so since this is a basics tutorial, we're not going to discuss it. History brush tool, very, very important. Like I was explaining earlier, say what I do. Now this is where we're going to make our background layer visible again. Remember when I was talking about the reason why we duplicated our original background layer earlier? Here it is. Press B and switch to your brush tool. Make sure that you're using the brush and not the color replacement. Now we're going to make something really harsh. Maybe neon green. There we go. It's kind of a nasty color. And we're going to just, we're going to just draw on our background copy layer. Big, bright green layer. There we go. That's nice and pretty. It's actually really ugly. Say you wanted to remove it. First thing that comes to mind is press Control-Z for Windows users or Command-Z for Mac users. Voila, it's done. But what if I drew a line and drew a line and let go each time, and drew a line and drew a line and drew a line and continued, like so? The undo function only works so many times. Understand? If I just start making little dots all over the screen, then if I keep pressing Command, Option, Z, it'll remove a lot of them. But after a certain point, it doesn't work anymore. No matter how many times I press it, my image is now irrevocably screwed. How do we fix it? Press the button Y. Switch to your history brush. Increase the diameter for a quick, clean slate. And now all we're going to do is, look at this. It just brushes right over the image and returns it to its original state, which would be this. See? Very, very, very useful tool. Okay. Let me get rid of this real quick, and we'll move on. Now, we have our eraser tool, background eraser tool, and magic eraser tool. Magic eraser is a combination of the magic wand with the eraser tool. Eraser, obviously, it's erasing things. There's nothing to erase, so it's not really going to do anything. Background eraser tool, again, it's wiping right through it. And you might see some differences real quick. As I'm running through this, you might see some color differences. That's because our background layer is still there and visible. Remember, we never made it invisible. If you make it invisible, this is what I just did. See that? Now, the reason why it's looking so spotty and making a bunch of circles that look kind of like a worm body is because of what's called the spacing. If you decrease the spacing, look at this. It's very unusual, isn't it? Increase the spacing, and it makes it even wider spaces. Because basically it takes this circle, and it's as if you're jumping across instead of smoothly running across it. The diameter also has a lot to do with it. As you can see, if I decrease the hardness, it suddenly makes a smooth line that you can run through and easily erase what you're trying to erase. Being again that I have really pretty much destroyed the image, I can go back to my original and just duplicate it again, and I'm back from scratch.